Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Robert Schmid, also known as Mr. IoT. I'm the Chief IoT Technologist for Deloitte with a deep passion for all things digital. This week on Coffee with Mr. IoT, I'm talking with Dipankar Das. And I'm just going to give something away here. Your nickname within Deloitte Digital is actually D5. Is it okay if I call you D5?
Yeah, some people call it D6, but you can keep it
Okay.
anywhere between 5 and
Okay,
6.
we'll keep it to D5, and next time we'll do D6. We'll let go every time we go one up. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. You are leading our digital practice around oil and gas. What does that
Downstream,
mean? What's that?
downstream oil and gas for refining and chemicals.
Got it.
So what it means is to make our clients aware that how they can work differently, I think, which half of them don't understand.
Half of them don't know. I have this. People come to me and say, we got to be more digital. It sort of cracks me up. I don't know if you know this, but I have a degree, a master's in petroleum engineering. I was upstream, but I did some thesis on fracking. I know, not a very popular topic, but that's what I wrote about. So, what does digital? I mean, we've been digital in oil and gas for a long, long time. What does the new digital mean?
So that's an interesting topic because whenever I go and talk to the client, especially oil and gas industry, and go and tell them that when I was a young engineer, chemical engineer back in mid 80s, joined an oil company in India, we had PLMs, we had DCSs, distributed control systems, advanced process control, we had data historians. So you are connecting the sensors to data historian and pulling the data up, right? So what's great in today's, we are talking about digital, right? The interesting bit is that this industry actually started becoming very mature. And they tried putting a lot of these vendors came in, put this fancy technologies on top of this data, which actually created silos. So we had data flowing, we broke them out, and they were trying to connect it back. So to me, it's like putting the things in place together to make it work better.
So let me make sure I hear you right. You're suggesting that we had the data, but we had it for one well in individual wells, and we had historians, but it wasn't integrated, and now we bring it together. Is that what you're saying?
No, I think up to that point, having the data, putting it into the historian was not much of a problem, right? So there are two issues essentially. One, these data and the sensors were actually brought in designed to do more control, right? Operating the plant and control. Today, people are expecting to get predictions, get prescriptions, trying to make machines learn how they operate themselves, right? With aging workforce, people retiring, and therefore you need a different type of data, right? And all this data coming in, all this operational technology, and downstream oil and gas, you have 60, 70 of them used by a refinery or chemical plant. They were designed to do a particular job to control. Now the requirement has changed. So therefore, the connectivity, the contextuality requirement, it was not there before. Those have changed. So the type of data, the IoT, the sensors have to bring in becomes different. So digital was always there. It's just the need has become different.
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. I understand. So it's contextualizing the data and adding data to what we have that actually fits more for the needs of today. So I'm curious, my perception, rightly or wrongly, and I have to admit I didn't stay much in the oil and gas industry. I went out of it pretty quickly. But my perception is that particularly oil and gas likes to keep the data in-house. So cloud for them is a bit of a difficult topic. Yet, cloud allows you really easily to contextualize, to do learning, you have pretty much unlimited storage and unlimited compute capacity, which really enables some of this. Where are the oil and gas companies going with this? Is this just my perception? What role does cloud play?
So I think you've hit a topic very passionate to my heart, close to my heart. 5 years back, 6 years back, it's very interesting. So there was a Microsoft presentation talking about cloud. So I went on after that and presented, why can't we do planning in cloud? So planning is an important function. We use linear programming models. All refining and chemical industries spends a lot of effort and good quality planning because that runs the plants, that decides how you operate. And I said that can happen. And not only my clients thought I was joking, Microsoft thought, why is this guy talking about cloud? Who knows about planning? And in that forum, the head of Aspen Technology, who was there, he almost bought a gun and shot me. He said, "Why are you talking about things you don't know or what our products can do?" Interestingly enough, 3 years back, one of our clients actually did an experiment. You talked about the compute capability, right? So we actually took the planning, which there's to solve when there's to buy crude, take 800, 900 minutes. We solved it in 30 minutes. Interesting enough, is it on production till date? No, because they're very concerned, this being a commodity industry, and any little move or leakage of information around prices or potential prices can move the whole industry, right? Today, you see $50, $80, the crude price moves up and down. So they're very scared that any of these information leaks may impact the overall industry margins and prices. And therefore, this industry is a little skeptical to go to cloud.
So it's still true today?
It's still true today. I mean, the client for which I did the experiment 3 years back, I met them in a conference about 5 months before. I asked them, what did you do? We showed you the value. They said, yeah, we know the value is there. And it's a very, very large company. They said, but we want to be sure that our crude values don't leak.
I have this, I was a CIO for a while, and we CIOs, we kind of want to keep stuff close, and we have this feeling the closer we keep our data, the harder it is for people to steal and to take away. And so there's sort of like, there's a perceived security by having it within your four walls, or having it at least in the data center you control. And then I met with one of the big cloud vendors, and they talked to me what they do around how they store data sharded. They talked to me how many security people they have and all this stuff. And I sat there and my jaw just went like, okay, I can never compete on security with them. Oh, and by the way, they gave me unlimited liability on some of my stuff, which obviously if I have my own bad data, there's no liability that they can ever get from me. They can fire me, but that's about it. So, I don't know. It always felt to me that was just a really, security is bigger in the cloud than it actually you can ever do on your own, unless you're really, really, really big. What's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, see, let's take a simple anecdote, right? If all our bankers are putting our data on cloud, our money is virtually on the cloud to be stolen by anyone. If we can live with that, why are we scared about a crude price going up by 5 cents? I mean, I still don't get it, right? But I think somehow you're right. Actually, it's the industry mindset, being conservative, doing things by hand, being driven by engineers, which I think has kept the industry conservative. That's what I feel it is. I think the time is coming. Changes are happening. I was doing an interesting project in a client where they're saying, I'm going to go and make people challenge and reapply for the roles because I want to make my organization digital. So they are actually putting up inside waves saying everybody has to reapply for the roles. It doesn't matter if you're a senior vice president or an engineer. So that when I have my digital platforms and digital disruptors available, you have to prove you're fit. And last 15 days, it is funny. And we did a small pilot for a subgroup, and the chairman agreed to move it across everywhere. And last 20 days, a lot of the projects have stopped because they're all fighting the old conservative team and the new team. So it's an interesting thing happening in the industry.
So this is just, that's funny. I have to tell you, that cracks me up. By the way, if you're just joining us, I'm Robert Schmid, the Chief IT Technologist for Deloitte, and you're watching Coffee with Mr.IoT. Today, my guest is Dipankar, a Managing Director at Deloitte, and we're talking about oil and gas and all those things. So let me just make sure I heard you right. You're suggesting that because of the shift in digital, the experiment is to have all levels reapply for their job in a digitalized company or in a company that's gone digital. Is that what you said?
That's what they're trying to fit, because they think it's not about cutting FTEs. Digital is not about cutting FTEs. It is about doing things differently. So if you do things differently, person A who may not be thought as fit for the job may be absolutely fit in the new digital work with the digital platforms. So they're actually making people apply.
I have to tell you, I was in industry too, right? And one of the things I always found the hardest was at year end, divvy up the budget, who gets how much in raises. And then everybody talks about how much they got. So I thought I had a crazy idea. And now that I'm listening to you, I don't think my idea was that crazy after all. But I thought I would go sit my whole team in a room and say, here's the money. You cannot leave the room until you figure out how between of you divvy up the raises. And I thought it would really be interesting and how you facilitate this so that bullies don't get more than people who don't speak up. But I thought it would have for sure ended all the conversations outside the door, well, this guy got more versus that guy. To have people reapply for their jobs, that's a whole new level of awesomeness. So thank you for that idea.
Yeah, and what I didn't tell you, they also have made it a point that it's not an individual, it's a relay race. So every sort of, it's called the team of the teams and team-based performance management. So it's a team working together from top to bottom. So from the sales generation to actually manufacturing that plastic or that gasoline or whatever as a team effort. So one cannot blame the other. So sort of your example of, come, share the pot yourself. Don't go outside and tell me you didn't give me the right amount.
Interesting. So, D5, I have to ask you, I think I said this before when we prepped, but I grew up in Austria and my career started in Austria. My petroleum engineering degree is Austrian. Where did you start your career?
I started my career in India. I was a chemical engineer, started my career. My dad wanted me to be a bureaucrat. He was a bureaucrat. So we made a compromise that we don't become a bureaucrat, but I will join an Indian public sector. So I worked for Indian Oil for about 10 years. It was an interesting journey those days. Then I moved to Reliance Industries, which is the world's largest greenfields at those times. I think still one of the largest complexes, the refining and chemical complex, largest Bombay city. Worked for Solomon, worked for Accenture. Actually, I set up a practice in Accenture, which is for the core assets and operation, and joined Deloitte early this year.
So you came from Accenture. What brought you from Accenture to us?
That was very interesting. So it's an interesting story. So about, I thought that in the area of the core digital operations or core operations, it was all about Accenture and a little bit of IBM here and there. And I didn't like them. Of course, I want to defeat them in every opportunity I go to. The last few years, I realized Deloitte is coming and competing everywhere. So I said, I thought Deloitte does not do anything on the oil and gas and stuff. And honestly, I'm very happy to say, after working here for 8 months, I'm still getting surprised so much work we do. I'm very proud I've joined here. I'm very happy I joined here. So I said, wow, this is a company. And then it's very interesting. One of my colleagues whom I work with very closely, so last 10 years, I used to lead Greenfield at the end in Accenture. And I lost my first Greenfield sales to Deloitte in US. And I said, that is serious. I have to do something about it. So I sort of reached out to someone and saw what Deloitte is doing. And suddenly I was called and said, are you interested? And I started talking to some of the most interesting people in the firm, and I landed up here.
Well, welcome. It's nice to meet you. I know we haven't met in person, even though we work in the same state, but it's nice to meet you online. Have you ever heard the term Deloitte nice?
Nice. No, actually, that's interesting to hear. What's that about?
We sometimes talk about how we're too nice. I don't know if that's true or not, but I think it's sort of like our way of saying we think we're nicer and we're too nice sometimes compared to our competition. And I'm curious if you see this, if you believe in this, if you think it's all kind of just a bunch of internal blah, blah. I
think it's, we are very nice bundle of people. Very nice bundle of people. I'm actually surprised the collaboration, the affection, and the open arm embrace I got in this 8 months. So I'm happy I did the move. And I'm really happy to be here. So yes, we are nice. I think the only other thing, which I don't know if there is a term for it, Deloitte does not really advertise that it knows so much and can do so much. I'm seeing some billboards in the Heathrow Airport now. And Puneet was
Yeah, it's new, isn't it?
yeah. I saw it before even Puneet sent out mails to all of us. But so I took a picture that day and put it on Facebook. That this is the first billboard I saw, and Accenture will do that everywhere, and all other companies will do that. But so I was so thrilled, and so yes, absolutely.
So we have billboards now at airports. Puneet, our global chairman and CEO, was writing to us about this because he saw it at some international airport. I actually have this idea. We created a rubber duck factory. So we do a lot of rubber duck stuff. So we do a lot of smart factory projects. And since you can't take a factory to your clients, we created a life-size virtual or augmented reality factory line, and it makes rubber ducks. So we call it the Rubber Duck Factory. And my dream is one day I want to print there's a marker that comes with it. It's 40 feet long, 10 feet wide. I want to print that at an airport, and then people walk with their phone and have like a factory line come alive. But I think we're still a little bit away from that. So maybe I can convince Puneet of this at some point in time. So D5, question for you. You told me some really funny fact. Very few people know this. There's an oil company in Austria, and you even worked for them.
Yes. I spend so the fun fact about me is I think as per British Airways, I went to the moon and back 7 times. I worked in 34 countries as a part of my consulting career, and Austria was one of them, and I had very good time. I worked for OMV. I did do some work about setting up their planning models and help them do crude evaluation better. And it's a great company, actually. In fact, while you asked me this question, I remembered that while we all talk of digital today, right, there were some companies who actually thought about that many years back. So I'd taken a Chinese client to Austria with OMV, and they were presenting to them, and they showed that at those days, I'm talking about 10 years back, where they actually thought how they can actually connect the market all the way to their operations. And they had done their, we call this microservices today, we call this SOA integrations today, and IoT sensors and all these things. They actually dreamt, and in their own way, actually connected the whole stuff where they could plan and give instructions of movement. So, kudos to OMV. You should have been there.
Did you actually know that OMV changed its logo at some point? It was actually OMV before. They had like the O with the 2 dots above. Yes, and then they realized that's not really an internationally readable logo. So they dropped the O's and made it OMV instead of OMV. Because nobody can say O anyhow unless you're born German speaking. So fun fact about OMV. So let's look a little bit outward from here. You talked about OMV being ahead of the market. Where do you see oil and gas go in the next 5 years? What are the next big things beside them adopting cloud? Let's go a little further out on the limb with them. What are the things that you see happening in the industry?
So I think actually more than cloud, which has already started for last few years, is all around reliability and maintenance and all these predictive analytics and stuff, right? Now, having led some of the greenfields, and greenfields have the luxury of doing things right from day one, put all the right sensors from day one, and so on and so forth. There are a few things I'm observing. One is people are looking at digital in a little different way in the new one. So, for example, if I talk of asset management and predictability, people just don't think about mechanical reliability, right? They are also thinking, can I increase safety in the plants? Can I reduce incidents in the plant, right? So how do I then connect? How do I not only make my mechanical units reliable to make my plant produce better, but why don't I also look at everything which reduces fire? So that's one aspect which is happening. Machine learning is something which is probably more popular, but I went to a client in Houston where they're trying to put video analytics to say, hey, I have a railway gantry which is shared between the port and my facilities. So can I, instead of manning that all the time, can I use video analytics to do things? So I think some of these things are still coming. Uh, the existing factories are going to wireless sensors today, because you cannot go and take an operating plant, punch a hole, and say let's put a sensor there to read, right? So these vendors, the big vendors today are bringing all these sort of wireless sensors. The other big thing which may happen, I was talking to R&D to two of the major advanced process control companies, edge computing, and edge is going wireless, and edge allows you to do a lot of analytics processing. So analytics is there and will be there, but what about doing the processing closer to the equipments and then passing only the required data? So sort of distributing the data out. And I think with the invention of the smaller edge near the equipments, and we have seen Deloitte has done a work with Texmark where actually we have done that. They're putting wireless edge and stuff. I think that will happen where advanced process control will be looked at differently, where you will actually do process control closer to the equipment than bringing all the data back to central room. So, and then finally, some people are also thinking about how to use AI to look at how you buy crude, how you actually evaluate crude, how you evaluate how you have performed on the plants, and so on and so forth. So I think many of the digital disruptors, not just cloud or IoT or sensors, will take place. There are a few areas which will take probably more time, like over-the-shoulder training with AR, VR, and stuff. That's probably a little wide out, maybe 5 years out. But some of the other things will come much faster than later.
Yeah, I mean, my take on oil and gas is that they've done a really good job in terms of asset performance management, sort of really managing assets in a much closer way than maybe some manufacturers who don't look at their machines as much as assets, but much more what the output is. And also when it comes to safety, oil and gas has always been sort of way out there in terms of, anywhere you walk on a rig 20, 30 years ago, you knew when the last incident was and so forth. So it's been
same downstream
and center from them.
Yeah, even downstream, right? Same way, right? So refining chemicals. I think the main problem was with these vendors bringing the operational technology, right? Ops management, energy management, blending. They were getting so matured. They were actually becoming I don't know what's the right word. They were killing the whole digital thing itself. So the whole maturity around the individual pieces were making it siloed.
Mm-hmm.
That was the problem, right? Because too advanced an industry, I think, in this area for years.
Well, D5, we're running out of time. I think you and I should come up with a plan to take something back to OMV. And between my broken Austrian and your deep expertise in oil and gas, I think we can maybe get them to do some more machine learning and AI, and we'll pump some more water, some more oil out of there versus the water they do today. But thank you for joining.
Hey, it was a pleasure. It was a pleasure. It was fun.
It was great having you. And please join me again next Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, for another Coffee with Mr. IoT. And by the way, if you missed any part of today's conversation, you can watch today's episode and any past episodes on my YouTube channel. And with that, I'm going to say happy Friday, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, you too.